Recording in progress.
Give us 1 more minute. We're still having some people coming in, and we'll get started in just a couple minutes. Thanks. All right. Good morning and welcome to the third Kentucky Summit. This is a statewide strategy for Riverport investment. We'd like to welcome everyone that took the time out of their busy schedules to participate with us here to continue to learn more about this important project for Kentucky's Transportation Cabinet and for the stakeholders in the Riverport and freight industries throughout the state. A lot of work has been ongoing over the past several months of this project. And today we're going to provide you with an overview of where the project currently is. We'd like to, remind everybody, I know in the past year of this pandemic, we've learned a lot more about online meetings and virtual meetings and summits. We are using the Zoom platform, as you're aware. We have some tools that I wanted to go over quickly just for everybody's housekeeping items. First of all, on your menu bar at the bottom, you have a mute button. Please exercise that and use that wisely so that we don't hear about your other meetings or phone calls that are ongoing at the same time. Please also use the camera button. You want to get our attention or raise your hand. That's one way, just to kind of wave into the camera a little bit, or you can use the chat function or the reactions button function that you see as we go across from left to right. The chat function we'll utilize for questions or issues you might be having during the conference to reach out to the consultant staff or to ask questions related to some of the discussion items. There's also additional buttons if you want to use those or click on those to also change your view. In the upper right corner, there's a view button. You can click on that and change your view of the presenters and of the presentations. I just want to remind everybody these sessions are being recorded so that we can make sure to capture what is being delivered in presentations and also the questions that, that may occur during some of these sessions. To kind of go over the agenda of the different sessions that you'll be going through during the week, we are here today at the opening session, which is from noon to 1:30 Eastern Standard Time. Later this afternoon, we'll be doing a Connecting the Ports to Global and Domestic Trade, a conversation with the inland barge operators. That will be from 2 to 3:30 Eastern time. There'll be a session tomorrow morning from 9:30 to 11 on anticipating the evolution of freight commodities. This is a conversation with many of your commodity companies throughout the state, like the corn, soy, and aluminum industries. Early afternoon from noon to 1:30, we'll have a modeling and scenarios Riverport investment strategy session. And then from 2 to 3:30, there'll be a discussion on funding programs and the Riverport capital improvement needs. On Thursday, we'll have a session on the economic development, advancing our state's riverports, which will include Secretary Gray providing his discussion on the project and from the state's viewpoint, and also providing some questions and answers that were provided in advance from the state ports and stakeholders of the project. And there'll be a closing session tomorrow afternoon from 12 to 1:30. So that being said, we're here at the opening session, and I'd like to provide a chance to introduce Mikhail Pelfrey, who's the director of the Division of Planning with Kentucky's Transportation Cabinet. And I'll hand it over to you, Mikhail.
Thank you, Jimmy. On behalf of KYTC, I would like to welcome you to the third Riverport Summit. For those of you that don't remember my face from the previous two sessions, I am Mikhail Pelfrey, Director of the Division of Planning. We conducted a previous study to look at riverports in 2008, and it resulted in the creation of the Water Transportation Advisory Board for the state of Kentucky, as well as a dedicated pot of funds to assist riverports. We are excited about wrapping up this study and the recommendations it will bring. Secretary Gray is at MASTO, which is the Mid-America Association of State Transportation Officials in Chicago, and will be joining us in person for a Q&A at the closing session Thursday at noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central. While he is not able to be present in person, he did record a welcome message for all attendees today.
Hello and welcome. I want to welcome you on behalf of the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet to the third and final Riverport Summit as part of the Kentucky Riverports Highway and Rail Freight Study. This has been a really important study that gives us focus and justification for future investments in the freight industry and multimodal transportation. And I am so pleased to hear how many of you have participated in the previous two summits, and that we have so much continued interest in this study across the state with industry stakeholders and from partners and regions surrounding our great Commonwealth. This week, we will have speakers that will give us updates on the status of the study, the status of the freight industry, as well as industry stakeholders and economic development opportunities we can leverage in partnership with our riverports. I want to thank all of you for your interest and participation. We know that your time's valuable, and we truly appreciate you joining us this week. I'm also looking forward to providing closing remarks to the summit on Thursday and having the opportunity to answer some of your questions, hear your comments about our partnership with the Kentucky Riverports. Our ports are critical economic engines that provide high-value jobs, move high-value cargo, and service the freight needs of our state. I hope you'll have the opportunity to participate in many, if not all, of the summit sessions this week. We're looking forward to getting Summit 3 underway now. But first, let me thank you again for the support each of you have provided, both the Cabinet and the Riverports. And I will see you all on Thursday at the closing session.
All right. Thank you so much from the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet for providing that opportunity to hear from the Secretary. We really appreciate his support and involvement and look forward to his presentation as we get closer to the end of this project. I'd like to introduce now Chandler Duncan from Metro Analytics. Chandler is the project manager for this overall task and has been managing the overall process and progress of the report. I'm going to have Rebecca from QK4 present his slides and get that up and shared with you here momentarily.
I'm working on it, I promise. How about that? Can you see the slides now?
All right, thank you, Rebecca. And thank you everyone for being here. And I'm gonna just kind of get us up to speed on where we are in our project and where we've been and where we're going. So as all of y'all are familiar who have been with us on this journey over the last more than a year now, it's hard to believe that COVID had not even started when we first began this process. Our project overview began with understanding the markets and the development process and where Kentucky's economy is headed, the role that the river ports have in it and what that's going to look like, which is a lot of what we were focused on our last summit, and transitioning into making the business case for investment, as well as making the business case for the ports and their competitiveness moving forward. And we're really getting into more today and actually throughout this week about understanding that business case and what it looks like. And that's kind of where we find ourselves at this critical juncture when we're about to go home, not go home, but to go back to work after this summit and really start writing the reports and giving you all of the great takeaways and deliverables from this whole study. So this is a critical juncture in the project. Go ahead to our next slide. So if you look at where we've been, again, where we've been in the past has been understanding the markets and the development process. And again, the kind of the golden arrows here are what we're going to be doing over these next couple of days. We're going to be talking over these next couple of days. The difference between this summit and the other summits we've had in the past are that we believe that we've built a good understanding of the economy, where it's headed. We believe that we've answered the questions about what's moving in the river ports, about where it's coming from, where it's going, what our commodities are. Now we have a good foundation to start talking about what can we invest in river ports? What can we achieve with that investment? Where can that investment come from? And how can we create business opportunities for the river ports, for the rest of Kentucky? When we make that investment, we make it wisely. And we're very interested in all the heads coming to the table at this summit to get that information out there and to learn from even the things that have changed during the course of our study to do that, so that we can get all of that really great insight and information into a living product that will go out to this community this fall, that everybody will be able to go out in the world with and use the product of what we're doing. And so this is where we are now. Next slide. So these are our river ports as we've looked at, and we've been working with all the river ports throughout Kentucky, as well as other stakeholders since our last summit. I know we've had conversations with a lot of people here in this virtual room over the last several months about everything, ranging from getting out to the port properties to see what assets you have, talking about the kinds of investments that a lot of river ports are envisioning. A lot of the communities are saying they'd like to see in the river ports, talking about what would be accomplished with those investments. And we're going to be opening up and drilling into that discussion over the next couple of days. And these are just the places we've been and where we've been having the conversation. The next slide. So what have we learned to date through this discussion and through where we've been? Just a quick recap, just so that everybody can kind of be refreshed in everything that we're building on to date in this study. If you recall, we had these tasks, which began with looking at the existing role of river ports in the economy back in the fall, forecasting the future trade volumes and the performance implications that we looked at in the spring. We've been engaging stakeholders with the future needs and opportunities in the spring and then leading out through the summer. We've been looking at investments and performance throughout the summer as we've had conversations with all the different river ports and other stakeholders. And now we're really looking at scenario impacts and looking at what a preferred investment scenario looks like and how to basically navigate that as a roadmap to a successful business future for to the Commonwealth and its ports. Next slide. So what have we learned? Looking back at task one, if you just to a quick refresher, we learned about how river ports connect Kentucky to the global economy. We had learned back in the fall about how the waterways are carrying 80 million tons of freight each year, $18 billion. You recall, we learned about how 19% of Kentucky's tonnage moves by water, but yet it's only 3% of the value on the transportation economy. We learned that 59% of the new jobs in Kentucky are from new business locations, suggesting there's a lot of opportunity for new types of business for Kentucky's river ports. We also learned about the growth in manufacturing, food and beverage, trade, logistics, aluminum, other sectors that could represent potential growth for waterborne commerce. And this is even in the early part of the post-COVID recovery. We also, if you recall back then, we're learning about Kentucky's current $500 million annual port funding level that is a lot less than the other states. And so we identified very early on that this discussion we have about funding and investment would always be an important part of what we're doing in the study. And this summit is going to give us an opportunity to really dig into that. Next slide. Also, in task two, if you recall, we were together back in the spring, we learned about the top 5 commodities comprising 89% of the river port market, that we have some certain markets that are really important for Kentucky's waterborne economy. We learned back then about the importance of petroleum and crude, the importance of coal, aggregate, grains, not gains, I apologize for that, grains and chemicals, that together they account for a very large percentage of today's market. We also learned that while freight growth was expected to grow to 2045, there could be a decline in waterborne commerce if present trends continues. We also learned that, that growth in oils, plastics, warehouse distribution, grain were all going to be growing. But we saw back in the spring that drop in coal is going to be affecting the river port economy, as it's going to be affecting all of Kentucky's economy. And that this is both an opportunity and a challenge when we look at how we invest in river ports. And we learned also that a lot of what's moving on the other modes is potentially divertible to river ports, but only if it's with the right partner in the right market and the right location. So we learned that it matters a lot. It's going to matter a lot how we invest in river ports and where we invest. So everything that we learned back in the spring is very relevant to our discussion that we're about to get into with this upcoming summit. Next slide. Also, as we've talked throughout the summer, as we've been engaging with stakeholders, both in the summit and even the summer rather, and then even before that, in the winter and even last fall, we revealed that there are a lot of needs to preserve the river ports, but also there are a lot of ideas and opportunities for new investment opportunities, which we'll be exploring throughout the summit. Also, we got a lot of inputs about there's a strong interest in market capture and business intelligence, and really making sure that we understand as we contemplate the investments that we're talking about over the next couple of days, how that's going to affect our opportunity to get new business. And we want to bring that into our product at the end of this whole study. Also, there's a very strong interest in understanding that the final products of this whole effort will translate those economic forecasts we looked at last time into market capture potential and mineable business intelligence for the articulation of what roles we all have and what role the dollars we spend, but also the actions that we take are going to have in creating a thriving river port business in Kentucky for the long term. Another thing we've been learning for task 3 with the stakeholder future needs and opportunities is about the need to focus on the leave behind value of all the products that we have here. And so we're going to be, we as a study team, but also hopefully the larger community, will be articulating more and more about throughout this summit about the leave behind value of everything we learned in the study as something that's going to inform both the public investment in the river ports, but also the investment that we hope future river port customers will make in the business that they do with the river ports. The next slide. We also, as we look at investment and performance scenarios, this is the place where we find ourselves here at this summit. We're currently right now and in that process of learning about the consideration of the existing funding sources and priorities. We're really going to spend a lot of our time in the next couple of days learning about, talking about, exploring about these types of opportunities, having extensive discussion about the projects, the rationale, the benefits, what are we gaining from our investment, opportunities to acquire new funding from new sources, not to be locked in just to what we currently have in our programming, but to reallocate, to look at what our priorities are. We got a new transportation bill that's just come out. A lot of opportunities there. And ultimately, we're in the process of looking at jobs, GDP, business output, impacts. Those are all part of the final report that you're going to be seeing this fall. And we want to really make sure that we're thinking about how we're going to be able to make investments to make all those things possible. So the product that you're going to be seeing coming from that when we're done, as we get into October, is going to be well, actually, we're going to be having a tech memo coming later in September just on investment packages, which will then lead us into a final report, all of which is informed by the things that we're going to be talking about at this summit. The next slide. And then also scenario impacts and the formation of a preferred scenario. And that's a key focus of this summit as well. And that's going right into our final report. It helps us to exploit those opportunities for new funding, prioritize the highest market opportunities, relate the port investment for market capture, and also make sure that we can make ongoing access to the Transearch, the data, all the resources we've had in doing this study, turning that over so that all of the port actors here in Kentucky will have access to all that information. It can be part of your market intelligence moving forward. And that will be something that you can get as a product of this project. It'll also be something that will be summarized for you in the final report in October. So that's kind of where we've been, what we've learned, what we hope to accomplish here, and then what you'll be getting out of it and what we hope that you'll help us to provide as we move forward. Next slide. So the other thing that we're looking at, that we've got our eyes on, that we're going to really focus on, particularly at Thursday, is the success roadmap. Now, this gets into the marketing toolkit, the market capture concepts, how the ports can leverage the investments that we talk about to really promote the ports, to have executive briefing materials, the story that we're going to be telling about Kentucky's river ports, about the success that is possible, not only for the river ports, for their customers, for the trading partners, for all the people who are interested. Because we're not interested in just talking about money to spend money on ports. We're really talking about a story about spending money to make river port customers successful, to make trading partners successful. And that's something that I hope that we'll all make part of our conversation in the summit, because that's what we, as the team putting this together, we want to give you that back in the marketing toolkit that you're going to use after this. So that's how what we're doing here fits in a whole larger project. The next slide. So putting it all together, after the summit is over, after we leave here, there are the two takeaway deliverables that are going to be coming in the fall. This is the last time we're going to be together before they come out all in one place. Really, after the summit, there will be the final report that will include the leave behind data resource, the business intelligence, informational resources, but also the so what of our effort. What does all of this mean? What does all this work we've done really say? That's what's coming up in September, October, the implications of the future that we see from all the inside of the summits, the research, all the tech memos, all of that. It's coming together now. How we invest in the ports, the impacts we expect, the markets we capture, the story we tell, the support that we seek. It all comes together here in the next couple of months. And this is our conversation to get us into that synthesis of all of these things. And then the other thing that really comes out of this summit, as I mentioned before, is going to be the marketing toolkit. How do we use the findings, the role for the economic development community, the roles for the ports, the informational briefing materials? It's all coming together here this fall. And so this is a critical juncture. It's really an exciting time in this project. I think we're going to have exciting conversations. We've got some great speakers and some great topics lined up. And this is really where we are in the project. Next slide. And so these are our next steps. So I'm hoping that I've been able to provide a good overview of where we have been, where we are, and where we're going, and how our activity here fits into all of that. Next slide. And so here we are on the schedule, and you can see we're kind of near the tail end. We've been through a lot of these activities. We've looked at the existing markets. We've done our forecasts. We've shared our forecasts economically. The Transportation Cabinet has them integrated now into the traffic model that they do for the highway system even. Projects have been identified, and we're looking at benefits and costs for those. We'll be talking about that more tomorrow. We're looking at investment scenarios. And now we're at this juncture of putting the pieces together. This is just a critical juncture. And so here we are, you can see with the red line. Next slide. So with that, that's a quick overview of where we are, and I will hand it back over to Jimmy.
Thank you, Chandler. I appreciate the project overview. As you can see, there's been a lot going on over the summer and through the past couple of months, and our team stands ready to provide an overview of more of the specifics related to that in the coming sessions and coming days. Now we'd like to provide an opportunity.
Jimmy, there was one question about the infrastructure bill.
I say that I was getting ready to read it. So this is the opportunity for the individuals here that are on the call and on the summit today to ask questions related to the project and the project status and overview to the project team. We do have one question already in the chat. If you want to add questions to the chat, we will field those as they come in. Or if you want to provide, just raise your hand using the little emoji button at the bottom. We will try and let you unmute your mic and ask the questions openly to the project team. So with that being said, I will go ahead and ask the question from Bill Kinzler. He said, after the passing of the infrastructure bill, has a team relooked at the models and impacts of the infrastructure improvements at the ports? So I'll go ahead and begin that question. We are definitely looking at the infrastructure bill, the amount of money that the US DOT and what the transportation side of the Senate and the House are putting together is of great significance. We're monitoring that. We're looking into the details of it and how that will impact opportunities for state transportation cabinets and DOTs to fund infrastructure at all modal levels. And how is that, what is the best strategy and scenario that the ports could put forward either individually or collectively to fund projects and investments that would help them and their customers produce, new business for the state, new opportunities and jobs for their communities, and also to be able to provide additional revenue streams for those communities.
Yeah,
so,
I think there are two parts to that question, really. One part is that the bill itself does carry a lot of opportunities, which are going to be addressed when we get to preferred investment package in the report. We're going to be addressing those actually in light of a lot of the discussion we have here at the summit in terms of how we take advantage of that bill. But then on the question about impacts, the bill itself will not change the impact that we can achieve by investing. It will affect, what we can invest potentially. So when we look at the horizon of what can be in a preferred investment package, that's really, I think, where we're going to see that show up in our ultimate recommendation at the end. And that's going to be a big part of our conversation, that we'll be interested in what people think about that, and also what our different speakers have to say about it over the next couple of days.
And there was just one minor correction in the presentation. Chandler said 500 million per year to the ports, and the KRI grant program provides 500,000 per year. So we wanted to make sure that came across correctly so that folks didn't have the wrong information.
Yeah,
so
my apologies. That must have been wishful thinking.
That's what I was thinking. If they could only have 500 million a year. So, but that was the only correction that I saw, other than the R in grains. But is anybody else available that wants to ask a question? Just raise your hand or put it in the chat. We'll provide a couple more minutes for questions. And just let me know or unmute your mic if I'm not seeing you for some reason. There's a lot of participants, so if we have any questions, just let me know in the next couple of minutes, and I'll make sure to let you ask your question. All right, well, I'm not seeing any new questions at the moment. If you do have one, our team will be ready to answer. We have several sessions coming up throughout the week, so you'll have opportunities to ask those questions during those sessions. I wanted to once again show you the list of the upcoming sessions. So to this afternoon, there will be a slight modification, but I think it's in a good way. We had, because of the hurricane that hit New Orleans early this week, we have a couple of our speakers had to pull away for emergency response purposes with their companies. As you can imagine, you all work in the riverport industry, you know that it's all interconnected. So we still have some speakers, and Ken has offered to continue to open that discussion and talk more about resiliency and the importance that is having on waterway transportation and freight transportation needs. And it's becoming more of the current reality as we see more and more events occur and more environmental impacts occurring. So we're going to broaden that discussion a little bit. We would really love to hear the feedback from the industry. So we'd love for y'all to get involved in that discussion and provide input that could really facilitate some good industry discussion. So look forward to participation today at 2 to 3:30. And again, the other discussions, there'll be 3 tomorrow, 9:30, noon, and 2 o'clock. So we look forward to seeing you all at those times as well. I do have an additional question here. Haley, can you unmute and go ahead and read that? Because I cannot see that question.
It's just a comment from Rich Toma that says $3 billion in EDA funds application due October 31st.
Rich, do you want to expound on that at all, or give any other insight on that?
I have been following what Matt Tackett had posted with regards to this EDA funding, that the poverty mapping along the Kentucky waterways allows most of your port areas, including Paducah, which Tim Cahill can comment on, and I've been interactive with him throughout. The propensity of the manufacturers with regards to site selection are impacted by waterways, but the state study on site selection for industry completely left out waterways. So what I'm suggesting is the workforce and economic development study portion of the utilization of these EDA funds, which also includes reuse of areas that were formerly involved in the coal industry, including transportation, would be eligible for allocation of funding. So there's a lot of money crafting with the grant application specialists that I have been in touch with, that has been used by the Paducah Port, would be something that should be explored. And along the impact of the flooding that took place in Tennessee, there could also be utilized a piece of informational software called Flood Mapper, which would allow for alerts for the communities along the waterway system. So there's a couple of items in there. From my reading, I believe that waterway projects and industrial utilization fully apply. Just the effort has to be noted and the applications need to proceed.
Well, I appreciate that information and would really like to have an additional conversation with you outside of the summit to make sure that we capture that, you know, and the importance of that to the communities with throughout Kentucky along the water front. So, Rich, I'll be following up with you this afternoon if you're available, or as soon as we can get together, just to make sure that we incorporate that. Like we said earlier. A lot of these tech memos are in the final process of development, but as we find things like have been described with both this EDA funds and the transportation infrastructure bill, that we are still in the ability to incorporate those findings and those changes as they're happening. I'm sure at some point in the near future, we're going to have to shut that down. So we will incorporate as much as we can and get into to make sure that it's as current and up to date as possible when we deliver the final findings through this study. So we'd love to get that information and make sure it gets incorporated correctly for the benefit of all the stakeholders here. And that just also brings me to another point as we moving into other sessions here. There's a lot of information and requested information out to stakeholders right now, including the ports and economic development. We really encourage y'all. I know everybody's super busy, and I know with the storm going on down south, there's a lot of unforeseen issues that are being taken care of. But it is critically important that we get, you know, the information from each of the stakeholders to provide the best possible look at these economic benefits and these scenarios for the port industry and for Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. So that's kind of my unapologetic plea to continue to bring us your good information, which is very helpful to the end process. And you'll probably hear me do that a couple more times throughout the summit. So I won't apologize. We really want the whole story, and I think that's important for the ports and for the state to be able to move in the direction that they're wanting to move. So that being said, we're kind of at the end. We are finished early, which gives you all back some time to get some lunch before afternoon session. We would encourage y'all to be ready to get on and get going maybe a couple minutes early, so that we can get that session off and running right away. So we appreciate everybody participation. We hope that everybody has a good afternoon and lunch. We look forward to seeing you back here this afternoon.